What would you do in the heart of the Amazon? When your purpose is clear, you serve the purpose. When you don't have a purpose, you're confused. You can be a victim. But if you serve a purpose, you just become a servant. I became a servant of one thing. Life needs to be maintained. Because now I needed to stay alive. There was no place for fear, just place for action. Victim is a state of mind, is not a real situation. And that state of mind changed dramatically and never returned, never returned. He's jumping out, he's bleeding, he's holding his knees slashed, he's screaming, the machete. I just turned around and I said, look, do not stand between a young man and his dream. That's all I told him. Dream is basically creating a reality. The rest is technical. If you have a vision and you see where you want to go, the rest is technical. What do you do to serve it? That's as simple as that. If you can penetrate the dream of somebody and ignite that, there's no salesmanship needed. When you have purpose, then, sacrifice makes sense. If you don't have purpose, why sacrifice?
What I tell you?
We left civilization, flew into the Amazon. For 4 days we were walking deep into the Amazon, and after 4 days we arrived to a small community, Saryamas. This was the last. There's nothing past that community. For 4 days we were walking down a trail. Now there's no trail, and when there's no trail, how do you make the next pass? Do you take the machete and cut the vegetation? There's no trail. The only things that we could follow were little tributaries, rivers, creeks, because the water source will guide us through the forest. But walking by the water is the hardest, because the closer to the water, the denser the vegetation. So what we did, we jumped into the rivers, into the creek, and we're trying to walk as much as we could in the water. Completely wet, our stuff heavy, starting developing blisters and rashes. It wasn't easy at all. And we walked like that for a day, and nothing to eat, and we're starving, but we have no food, because Carl said it's very silly to take food into the Amazon. We have rice, we have beans, and we have a shotgun. So we'll hunt. But on the river, everything changes. Carl is like a shaved Samson. The only one of us that doesn't know how to swim is Carl. So on the raft, Kevin is taking leadership, but Carl is not about to give leadership up. So both of them are fighting and screaming, and Kevin is giving instruction, Carl is giving the opposite instruction, and we are split. Marcus follows Carl, and I stayed by Kevin. The river became very narrow as we entered the canyon. The sheer cliff started building from both sides. We started shooting rapids when we hear a terrible noise, and we see that huge rock, and then came the heat. And before we know it, we're on the boulder, hanging on the raft, climbing back on the raft, on the boulder. The other side is the waterfall. We stand on the waterfall with our raft trapped in the middle. We are hanging on the raft, jumping back on our feet, looking down, and both of us are shattered. That's the waterfall. I look at Kevin and I see that Kevin is completely pale. I know we are in big trouble. Kevin is looking down at this vast amount of water. We were really desperate, completely desperate. In the middle of this white water, to be stuck at night. Kevin said, we cannot do that, so here's what we're doing. You hold the machete. He said, you hold the machete in your hand. I'm going to jump. If I'm going to make it to the right bank, you throw the machete after me. I'll climb up the cliff, cut some vines, make some rope, come down and take you out. I was crying by that stage because I knew he was going to die. And I was crying for him, but I was crying for me because I knew he's going to die and he's going to leave me alone here. So I was holding the machete, looking at him, and then he gave that huge jump. He flies in the air, he's taken by the water. I look, and then I see him pops. He's popping straight to the right bank. He's jumping out, he's bleeding, he's holding his knee slashed, he's screaming, the machete! I throw the machete in the air, and then everything moves, screeching. The raft lost its balance. By jumping, it pushed the raft off the rock. I'm falling into the waterfall. I'm screaming, Kevin, don't leave me! He's screaming, hold on to the logs. I'm throwing myself on the logs, I hold on to them, and I fall into the waterfall. And then I'm inside the guts of this river, tremendous pressure on my chest, pitch black. I just close my eyes, I'm afraid to open my eyes. I hold and I feel I'm bursting, there's no air. I cannot take it anymore. And then suddenly the raft just pops out, and as it pops out, I grasp for her, it feels like gold, it's so precious. And I look back for a minute, second. I see Kevin. Kevin is there, waving the curve. I don't see Kevin anymore.
Yossi Ghinsberg is a master storyteller and author of the international best-selling book, Jungle, based on his harrowing adventures in South America. After a tragic separation from his friends, Yossi was lost and alone for weeks, deep in the heart of the uncharted Amazon jungle. His amazing struggle to survive against all odds is a story of inner strength, triumph over adversity, the power of faith, and of self-discovery. A truly gifted speaker, Yossi takes his audiences away from the mundane into a journey filled with riveting stories and packed with inspirational insights. His message permeates through the hearts and minds of his audiences and affects them on emotional as well as intellectual grounds. The results are long-lasting personal and organizational growth, endorsing creativity, prompting to action, instilling courage, and expanding conventional boundaries. Yossi has been featured on numerous television, radio, and media outlets, including the Washington Post, Successful Meetings Magazine, the Los Angeles Times, Fox News, and most recently on Larry King Live. The Discovery Channel has recently released a documentary film on his amazing story that has aired worldwide. Emotive, inspirational, and thought-provoking, Yossi speaks from the heart and leaves no audience indifferent. They are spellbound, grasping for every word. Original, thrilling, and entertaining, it is Yossi's keynote that more often than not becomes the talk of every event. Yossi has 2 new books in the process of publishing: Laws of the Jungle, scheduled for late 2006, and Glimpses, planned for 2007. 10 years after his miraculous survival, Yossi returned to the Amazon and made it his home. Working with indigenous forest dwellers for 3 years, they built Shalalan, a model ecotourism village that inspired the entire Amazon basin and the world.
10 years later, I returned to the Amazon. My life was saved by Indians. Kevin's life was saved by Indians. We built an amazing resort. Thousands of people from all over the world have been there, and many, many more thousands are flying. 6 months in advance, you need just to book a place in this resort, 18 hours into the Amazon. The power of dreaming, the power of passion, making miracles in life.